Welcome back to the Go to Master Show, Finance Fireside podcast, where we converse with finance leaders from some of the fastest growing businesses out there and bring you what they've learned through their experiences. I'm your host, Jose Aleman, and joining us today is Steph Allen, CFO at Accela. Thanks so much for being here today, Steph. Could you get us started just by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at Accela?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be part of this. I've been with Accela for about 5 months now, but I've been a CFO at fast growth companies for about 3 years. And my focus has always been on growing and scaling in a sustainable way. Um, my career has taken me through a variety of roles in finance and accounting in various industries. And one consistent principle I've learned is that finance leadership isn't just about managing the numbers, but it's about telling the story and the story behind those numbers in such a way that the entire organization can come along with. I've worked across different stages of growth, and so I've seen um, all the ways that things can go right and all the way that things can go wrong. And I really love helping leaders see finance as a business partner in driving their strategic goals and not as a hurdle. I'm also very passionate about growth and development, both for me and my team. And I'm a big believer that we just get this one life and this one opportunity to do this, and we need to make it count.
We certainly do. Yeah, that's super interesting and relevant. The finance function, having been on the professional world for decades now. Never actually, I did had a brief stint in finance. Not really worth talking about. I realized it was not for me very quickly, even though I did an MBA with a finance specialty. But I gravitated more towards operations. And there's this often a clash like finance can be seen as, oh, these are the people that are going to try to stop us from getting what we need to do, and we need to justify stuff. And I've certainly worked at places where there's a little bit of that, but when finance is working and it's really a partner to the business, really, really good things have happened. So it's a really good angle to take. It's not just a function that's behind the scenes working out budgets, but it can be a really strategic one for the
Absolutely.
business. Which good segue to our next question. And yeah, I've looked at your trajectory. You've definitely navigated different types of finance roles, steady growth up and to the right, fantastic. Different types of organizations, integrations, acquisitions, hyper growth, and you've stepped into a new role recently. What is when you step into a new role and putting on your strategic hat? What is that first strategic lever you want to pull at, and why?
Yeah. My first strategic lever, stepping into any new company and I think in any role, not just the CFO role, is always to gain clarity. I think specifically around cash flows, given my role and its relationship to growth strategy. I have seen companies with really tremendous top line performance find themselves in real trouble because they didn't have a clear, shared understanding of how the money was moving through the business. So, my priority is always to quickly build that picture where the cash comes from, where is it going, and how is that driving us towards our goals. And then once we all have a shared understanding of that, we can start to pull the right levers whether it's tightening working capital or rethinking the sales cycle or investing in the infrastructure that unlocks that next stage of growth. That shared clarity is what sets the tone for all of the decisions that come after that.
Yeah. I think cash flow, as I remember my accounting courses, it's one of the core statements, right? That you get your balance sheet, your profit and loss, and then your cash flow. But I also remember it being like the ugly duckling that non-accountants don't really pay a lot of attention, right? Balance sheet, easy to understand. As a profit and loss, obviously people get that, but cash flow, I think, being a more flowy by definition, is just how things move around the business. It's maybe harder to grasp. um, Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about that importance of cash flow as a metric, and what are the troubles you can get into if you ignore it, and what should we as business people be aware of
Yeah,
when
I
thinking
think
about cash flow?
certainly. I think oftentimes it can be really easy to focus on expenses or that bottom line from a P&L perspective, and we make decisions to make that P&L look as great as possible, right? That's our job. But when we do that without that eyesight on the cash flow, we can start to fall into a danger zone. and understanding where my cash position is. Where is my money going? Am I sticking a lot of things in capitalization that are going to come back to haunt me when I don't have the cash because I paid it out up front? And that doesn't necessarily reflect through on the P&L. And so it's super critical for that. How am I going to not just deliver this month and not even just this year, but how is this setting me up to make the right strategic investments long term? If I'm just getting by every month in a cash position, then I really am living almost paycheck to paycheck, if you will, as a
It's a
company.
good
Just
analogy,
not,
right? It's the same
yeah,
trouble you can get in as a person not having your reserves. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, we see it. So our Everstage's core business is incentive compensation management, and part of what people care about our customers is the famous ASC 606 reports, and it's exactly that. Like, how much are you going to be deferring, capitalizing, and obviously it matters a lot for us to be able to provide it very easily, and for our finance partners on our customer side to get it. But I think you've enlightened me a little bit more into why it all matters, right? It's just decisions, maybe trade-offs between what you're doing today. What is that going to actually cost you in the future? Excellent. All right. Yeah. No. So very important. So clarity obviously has a lot to do with reporting, just being able to know what's out there, just seeing the business. And we chatted about how reporting for you it's more than just compliance, right? It can be an actual, a really good business tool or weapon even. How do you think about finance using reporting into the driver for clarity, speed, and real action?
I think most people hear reporting, and you kind of touched on it with the statement of cash flows, and there's a little bit of a groan in it. It's a thing that we have to do. It's compliance, and that's true. That I have to make sure that our reporting is solid to earn the right to be the CFO. It's a critical foundation. Audits, regulators, the monthly ritual, super critical. However, if we stop there, we've missed the entire opportunity that finance brings. Reporting is and should be, in the best case, a decision-making engine. It should be relevant, it should be timely, and it should be actionable. With in terms of relevance, do my fellow business leaders see metrics that make it clear how we're performing? And not just in a year-over-year sense, but in our growth goals. Is it timely? If it takes me 2 months to get reporting out, it's no longer timely. It's not really helpful in understanding what's going on with the business. And then is it actionable? Are we providing reporting to not just the CFO, the board, the CEO, et cetera, but to our fellow business leaders that makes it really clear we're on the right track or we're off slightly and we need to adjust course now before we get too far off course? I have seen the simple shift from static monthly reports to dynamic dashboards change the pace of decision making, sometimes almost overnight. Suddenly, especially, I think I love that this is a go to market kind of focused podcast because especially as it comes to go to market, that is an area where we have to act fast, and having that real time dashboard information gives us the tools to respond in a space where we're spending on a day to day basis very quickly. Our sales team can see how their pipeline is shaping up. Where do we need to go spend more money on demand gen? Pardon me. Where do we need to pull some money back, redivert our resources, et cetera? And then, from a ops perspective, giving our ops teams the ability to see before an issue is escalated what's happening with our customers. So those are all really critical aspects that you don't get if you're kind of stuck to the old compliance mindset of reporting. And then all of those coming together allow leadership to make the right bets on how to drive the company towards our goals. I think when finance teams treat reporting as a strategic tool, it does move the business faster. It eliminates or hopefully reduces blind spots, and it turns our data into a competitive advantage.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. And what resonates with me is there's the compliance piece. Of course, every company needs to, by law, to they need to produce this sort of standard type of reports. But those things are there for a reason, right? They're actually, if you look behind the scenes, there's obviously a wealth of information in there, and if you start to combining and look at all the ratios and just bring that more to the forefront, it turns out that, yeah, they're really, really valuable and very strategic. And I'm sure, and I think we'll talk more about AI later, but I'm sure with some AI assistance, it might be very easier now than ever just to maybe generate insights from those things that you probably have already. But let's put a pin on that because we're going to circle back on AI. Um, you mentioned go to market, and yeah, that's really all that we're about, and it's most of our audiences is really interested in the go to market motion. It's from our point of view a really fascinating intersection of just strategy, human just needs and desires, and execution and planning, and we're obviously go to market professionals very close guarded about that. Where we care a lot about it, and sometimes again, finance can be seen as, oh, we would want to do this, except we can't do finance. But uh, from your point of view, like what would you think a really strong go to market motion would look like, and what is the role of finance in helping us succeed and even accelerating that efficiency for go to market?
A strong go to market function is one where marketing, sales, product, customer success, and finance are all rowing in the same direction. We love to say when sales wins, we all win, right? So we all need to be behind one mission and one goal. I think when we have clear, measurable expectations from demand gen, we can trace that through to revenue recognition. And again, that's where we all win. Um, I think finance's superpower in that is that we have the ability to see across all of those functions, to see how all the parts are coming together. Marketing is focused on marketing, right? You said it. They have to come and ask for money, and how do we defend this and justify it? And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, when finance is a strategic partner, our my biggest hope is that folks see us as, I'm going to go talk to my business partner in finance on how I can make this a yes. How
Mhm.
do I make this happen? Are there areas that maybe I'm not aware of that I can cut to redivert resources? And that's not a finance function. I view that as being part of the go to market function. I think there always is a healthy amount of friction. We have
Mhm.
bottom line P&L goals and marketing has pipeline goals. And so there's always that. But having a seamless relationship between the marketing and sales teams and finance really enables us to be just a phenomenal team that's going to drive the growth that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, so seeing across the whole landscape, right? That sounds really, yeah, powerful, superpower, as you say. Um, and if you can do that right, you can only just help not only the individual functions optimize their own thing they do, but also across the border. So maybe you are generating a bunch of new business, but it's the type of business that tends to pay their bills 90 days after everyone else, or that maybe churn is broader. And I think as finance, if you see across, you can help make those judgment calls that are overarching across everyone. And really, there at the end of the day, there's just one scoreboard for everyone, and it's company performance, no matter what you're in. So excellent.
Absolutely. I think that's a key in having a really strong relationship between your finance and sales leaders as well, to be able to understand when we do make those trade offs, how are we going to offset for them later? And having a sales leader who's bought into what you just said, we all have the same goal of overall growth for the company. It's not just about that booking, but how does that booking translate to, if you're selling managed service as opposed to software, we have a margin issue, right? So how are we addressing all of that? And having a sales leader who understands that and is walking in step with you is crucial for easing that path.
Yeah. Yeah, the old don't give away services to sell software. Yeah. Uh, Curious if you've come across this, you can maybe shed some light. If not, we can skip over it. But again, we deal with comp, and often the very first conversation we have with finance is, well, can we afford the plan? And there's a lot of back and forth about budgeting for sales compensation plans, which obviously has to happen. Um, what about on the other side? Any advice for any RevOps people or comp people when you're presenting a plan to finance? What else besides the cost can we focus on that'll help us break through and just really communicate what the benefits are of doing things this particular way?
a great finance leader understands that it's not just about the number. That's obviously important. It has to make sense. But sometimes that we're willing to take a hit in year one because we expect that it will deliver in year two or three. And so there's more to it than just that. I think the biggest thing has to be redirecting the conversation. So you have to come with those numbers. That has to be part of the conversation. But then redirecting it to here is what we're trying to incentivize. This is the behavior we're trying to drive,
Hmm.
and this is how we believe it's going to do that. And here's how this will pay off in 2 or 3 years. We gotta not look at this from just a current year perspective. It's very short-term focused, and as we all know, we're all buried in our long-range plans all the
Hmm.
time. But so how does this drive us towards that, not just this year, but next year and the year after?
Yeah. Yeah. We try to help our customers not only to have the conversation around the future, but also look back and be able to show, well, last year, the plan we put in place, these are the things we're trying to accomplish. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. And this is why we're trying to evolve it into this other thing. And we find often that it's, as you say, everyone is busy with the day to day. We're, if not running payroll, prepping plans, if not, we're planning for next year. So having that time to just find the cycles to be strategic and do that is critical, and it's something where we care a lot about, and facilitated by providing tools that free up teams people to be able to do that, and then some expertise and tool sets to, again, echoing what you said about the financial reporting being useful. The same thing on the comp reporting. There's a wealth of information there that could just be sitting there or could be turned on to strategic levers for better conversations into planning and the future. So yeah, and it's so interesting. There's parallels everywhere here. So not surprisingly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we hinted at maybe some of the AI impact that you see coming, but let's just take that head on. If you were a big betting woman wanting to make a bold bet, where do you see AI making the biggest impact for finance teams first, and then just in general, if you want to share?
It's such an interesting question because finance people by nature are so very risk averse, and so encouraging folks to even play in the space of AI is a challenge. But I My big bold bet on AI is that it is going to transform finance from this kind of historian that we have been known to be into the real time decision partner through the AI integration. I think right now, a lot of finance is very reactive, where we wait till we close the books, then we run reports and we write up the variance analysis, and then we make decisions. And so, as we talked about earlier, the data might be somewhat timely, but we're still behind the game. We're waiting for month end, and then we're a couple weeks out from that before we're able to make decisions on it. I think AI changes that sequence. Imagine a world where the system can continuously pull live data from sales, from operations, even market conditions, and then model the impact of different scenarios from pricing changes to demand in the market and flag risks or opportunities before they ever even hit the P&L. Um, that's not just faster reporting, that's finance moving from historian to out in front. We're the navigator, guiding the business in real time. Think the finance teams that learn how to integrate AI with a trust but verify to honor our risk averse nature, um, and then act on the intelligence that we get from it are going to have a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. There's obviously some areas of the business where we already make a very conscious effort to forecast things, like obviously bookings and sales. And there's a whole mechanism behind that of people and meetings and tools that help us do that. Obviously, that's not going to necessarily change. It'll probably get more important. But what if we could have AI on the background on its own, forecasting all the other things that we're not necessarily going to sit around the table and discuss, and
Right.
just give us best guess throughout the quarter, and then put all that in an engine and just have a little bit of a preview of what could happen. I love that idea, and then the scenarios, of course, because it's the future. We don't know what's going to happen. AI won't know what's going to happen, but ranges, right? How big is the risk? What is the opportunity here to blow it out of the park? And maybe early decisions like, can we afford to invest now in this strategic initiative that we think is going to be amazing, but we were wanting to wait for the results before we commit to it? Can we have more confidence now to pull the trigger early? Um, yeah,
I
fascinating.
and the last 5 years in particular really have shown us that things can change overnight in ways that we didn't expect. And if we can build AI to a point where it's also helping us think through that worst case scenario, if you will, God willing, we don't encounter any more major worldwide pandemics. But enabling us to think through those such that we have a rainy day plan when the worst happens. What do we do? How do we react in real time, which we can only do if we do have the information.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, just preventing really bad scenarios and also just taking advantage of really good ones early because that opportunity cost, especially, I mean, everything is it's so competitive right now that any edge would be massive. I'm gonna do some research. I don't know of any vendors doing that you described, but I'm gonna be betting that if I find one, I'm gonna see if I can invest in them because that sounds incredible. Um, we're doing it in our world just to bring it closer to what we do at every stage. We just launched a planning module that feeds into the commission stuff, and we're excited about that scenario thing. There's some AI capability there, but it's not monitoring your books live. It's just more within the same planning world. But even that ability to model something, save it as a scenario, keep it in the back, it's just making our planning motion um, a lot more valuable, and it should save a ton of time and make us better partners as RevOps people with finance. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation. Excellent. So again, researching a little bit about your roles and your trajectory, it's super impressive. You've done it all in order, raised through the ranks, changed companies, handled all sorts of things. And we always want to highlight leaders like you in this forum. And it's not just to make you feel good or make us feel good, but it's just some of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we definitely want to see how do we pay this forward to the next generation, right? So specifically in your case, as a woman finance leader, what do you think we should be doing more of, or what advice would you have for anyone that's breaking into this field? And how can we make sure that the next generation of women leaders in finance are fantastic?
I love this question. Thank you for including an element of this. I'm so passionate about creating opportunities for women in finance, specifically in leadership, where we continue to be largely underrepresented. I think one shift I would really love to see is moving from mentorship, which is critical, to a sponsorship model for women in finance. Mentorship is valuable. It is, active guidance and perspective, which never go out of style. But sponsorship is active and courageous. I think it's using your influence to open doors, put someone's name forth, take a risk for a stretch role, or advocate for them when they're not in the room. In my career, the moments that changed my trajectory weren't just when someone gave me good advice, though I'm forever grateful for all of the advice that I've received from my mentors because I'm sure they will all be listening to this podcast. But it was really when somebody took a chance, when they saw my ability and aptitude and let me go out on a limb and were there to help me make that work. That sponsorship accelerates confidence and career growth in a way that mentorship alone just can't. Think if we were able to shift more leaders from a mentorship mentality to a sponsorship mentality, we would see a generation of women in finance who are ready for leadership and already in seat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love the answer. Sponsorship versus mentorship, huge. And yeah, it's maybe a subtle shift in mentality, but profound changes and impact, right? So just having that trust, um, investing a little bit of personal capital into someone else that you see has potential, maybe taking a little bit of risk by letting them own something maybe before earlier that they think they're ready to do it. Um, and then just celebrating the wins, helping through any challenges. And I always say this, like my best managers and bosses across my career have been people that are incredibly generous with sharing credit and with making sure that anyone that contributed really feels that they were integral part of that, that other people know. And roles, I mean, finance and operations share a little bit of that. Where uh, behind the scenes, a lot of the time, people don't see the great work that we do. Sometimes the company only hears from us when something goes wrong. They just expect things to be right, and when they don't, then suddenly people talk about finance or operations. So when we have that opportunity to elevate the work that we do, and to make it more visible, to the extent we can do that across the board, obviously super important, and double down with yeah, and women's in finance, women in finance and leadership totally makes sense. Um, Excellent. Well, this has been super helpful. Um, Before we let you go, we always ask if you have any general advice you want to give to people that might be listening to this, or any books or podcast recommendations or shows, whatever, just any parting words of wisdom from you would be fantastic.
Yeah, you would expect that I would offer book recommendations given the books behind me. I'm going to I think I have 3 kind of key pieces of advice I'd love to offer. The first is let your values be your North Star. I think you have to know what you stand for and live each day as uncompromisingly as possible in line with those values. For me, that's integrity in a people first approach to driving growth in a business. I lead with accountability and as much transparency as my role allows, but especially when it's uncomfortable. I think at the end of the day, I have to be able to sleep at night knowing that I made the best decisions that I could, even when it was daunting. And building that muscle makes it easier to trust your gut in the tougher calls later in your career. I think number 2, this is almost a Ted Lasso, quote, so I apologize for that. We're over inundated, I'm sure. But lead with curiosity. I think the best leaders that I have worked with lead with questions. They ask good questions, whether they know the answer or not. They're asking questions that drive more depth of thought through the business. Think when you walk into a conversation assuming you don't know the whole story and somebody in the room is smarter than you, you're enabling your own growth and empowering others to do so as well. I believe that it is freeing to admit that I don't know something. And it puts me in a great position to learn. And people love to share knowledge. And so it also is a really great relationship builder. And then I think my third and final, which is the terrifying one, is get out of the safe lane. I think growth rarely happens when we're in our comfort zone. So take the stretch project, apply for the promotion before you feel 100% qualified. Say yes to that scary opportunity. Think you will learn more in those uncomfortable moments than you ever will by staying where it's safe. And you will prove to yourself and to others that you can and do rise to the challenges even when you're not ready for them.
Hmm.
Um, yes, you might fail, but every failure is a learning opportunity, and you just have to get back up. I would I would love to leave with my one of my favorite quotes from Eleanor Roosevelt. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience and when you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing you think you cannot do.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Those 3 points resonate a ton. Integrity. I mean, what we have in life really is time. We get to choose how we spend our time. And the other thing we have is just how our reputation, what follows us. Do we sleep at night? The decisions we make. That is, no matter what position we are in, those two constants, or just look after those two things. Makes a ton of sense. Ask questions for sure. And as leaders, maybe I'll add answer questions. Encourage your teams to ask questions and be, again, generous with your time. Um, God knows we know in a world of acronyms and things, and just I see junior people sort of afraid to ask questions. Encourage that, make it happen. And the comfort zone, yeah, I mean that quote says it all. Life happens outside of your comfort zone, so you gotta get out there and go for those opportunities. Amazing. Well, really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for being here with us, Steph. And I will do the official close now.
Okay?
Um,
Thank you for having me. Genuinely, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and share whatever knowledge I might have to impart.
No, this was great, and there's a just incredibly still a big vacuum of genuine conversations that can help people do better at their current stage in their life and careers and progress through it. So this is really important that we have this type of chat. So, well, that brings us to the end of this insightful episode of the Finance Fireside. And big thanks for Steph for sharing her experiences and valuable insights. And remember, you can tune in every week to learn more from game changers driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Finance Fireside is brought to you by Everstage, your trusted partner for transforming the way businesses handle sales compensation. I am Jose Aleman, your host, signing off.